And welcoming to the podcast, our 200th edition of Chamber Amplified. Gary Lehman, episode number 200. You are the 200th guest on the show. No pressure with that number on you today, Gary.
I'm honored. Thanks.
So, Gary is with Ohio Homeland Security and the Office of OP3. We're going to get into all of that as we go into today's show. But there's a big tie to local businesses, and we'll spell that out for you as well. Gary, I'm excited to get into this, but let's get people familiar with OP3 first and just exactly what that is.
So the Ohio Public-Private Partnership, it started back about 12 years ago. And if people are watching, if you're watching the news, you'll see that in our news that, sorry, my power. That in the news, you'll see that there's a lot going on. Right now, we're in the middle of a shutdown with Department of Homeland Security. FEMA's roles are changing. So the Ohio Public-Private Partnership, or any of the private partnerships across the United States, bring in the private sector into the public sector to help prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters. CISA, if you've heard of that term, has basically said that 85% of our infrastructure is within the private sector. So it's a key component to making sure we as a society are prepared for disasters.
That's a stat that I don't think a lot of people would be aware of, that 85% in these. What are we talking about when it's infrastructure that's within the private sector?
Yeah. So, I mean, even things that you don't think of, like buses within the cities and stuff, are actually within the private sector. Airports, there's 16. CISA has defined 16. Anywhere from even our electric grid is private sector. So there are a lot of things out there that people think are public that are actually private. So with OP3 or any of the private sector liaisons across the United States, there's a saying with both the private sector liaisons and emergency management agencies: if you've seen one, you've seen one. So we're all set up a little bit different. But the thing of it is that we go all the way down to the small businesses through SBA, all the way up to big corporations. But it includes everybody in that umbrella.
One of the things we talked about when we were getting ready for this episode is that a lot of businesses just are not prepared for whatever the worst case scenario may be. We've certainly had plenty of severe weather roll through this region here already this year. That's just one example of things that you need to be prepared for. What are the things that you see businesses overlooking when it comes to the things that could impact infrastructure and then how they're able to get back on their feet?
So usually your large companies have at least one person, if not several people, designated to preparing for disasters, making sure that, they have what's called continuity of operations. But your small companies don't always have that. Like just simple stuff like, what is the contact of your personnel? Do you have that? We're so used to technology today, but do you have it printed out? So that if you lost power or lost your computer, if your computers have been compromised, are you able to contact both your people and also the organizations that use your services or business or something? But every small business should at least have a small booklet where they can continue to operate even during a disaster or recovery after the disaster. What is your insurance number? What's copies of your insurance? What are key things that you have to get up? How are you going to get those up? So these are things that every business, every private sector business should be thinking about, that they don't always think about when they're smaller. They just like, well, I don't think that's ever going to happen to me. And then it's even personal preparedness. What do you have in your car? How about your family plans? Your business, your first priority, and with all of us is, okay, we do have a business, but our families are important. So what do you have? What do you have set for them? What plans you have ahead of time for them? And OP3 kind of helps to bridge this gap, to bring in those conversations and those tools and resources to help businesses prepare for disasters like that.
When I think about Findlay businesses, I think that especially those that are downtown I know we're prepared for one thing, and that's flooding. We've
Yes.
had our fair share of it. Mercifully, we haven't had a whole lot lately, even with the heavier rains that we've seen as we record this podcast. Is it if you're prepared for one type of event, like a flood, is it easy to overlook some of the issues that you could run into with other types of events, or are they all? I mean, I imagine the playbook's kind of the same, but do you need to have different scenarios listed out?
So usually the first interface for any business is with their local EMA. So every county, there's 88 counties in Ohio, and those counties usually are interfacing with the businesses in the county or should be. So the first step is to make sure you're plugged in with them. But they usually have an overall, they have SOPs and they also have emergency incident plans, emergency action plans, so that they are, they do like a what is the most likely thing to happen, and then with that they
Mhm.
have plans for that. But it's like with anything. I think Muhammad Ali or one of the boxers out there
Oh, Mike
said,
Tyson.
yeah, Tyson, you have a plan until you get punched in the face. Or, the military, we have a plan until first contact. It's
Mhm.
the same with businesses. So you basically think of all the things that could go wrong. You interface because all disasters begin local and end local. But the first step for businesses is to be connected with their county EMA, or if they're a bigger city, they might have a city EOC and an EMA within that city, like Cleveland or Columbus or down in Hamilton County.
So we've seen an uptick in severe weather over the last couple of springs here in Ohio. Have you seen people be able to put these plans in action? And uh, has it been demonstrably better for those who have that plan compared to those who haven't? Maybe some success stories that you've seen.
So, so we have some of the success stories, like during COVID. Everybody basically, they kind of rewrote it, and everybody got into a mode, and they pulled out, these plans. Um, Specific success stories. This is kind of a so I'm thinking of the win that we just had yesterday. I haven't heard, how what businesses did up there, but a lot of
Mhm.
times, a lot of the stuff is like there's a thing called Ohio VOAD, and some of these have the NGOs that are out there that come in after it, and like the downed trees and stuff, and come in and remove
Yeah.
those things from local businesses and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so there's those connections, and that's what I kind of do with OP3 is connect in those Ohio VOADs, connect in other private sector. Oh, I'm sitting here dancing as I'm trying to think of one. So here's
You were
one.
doing a great job tap
Yeah,
dancing with
so
it. Yeah.
January. So in January we had Fern come through, right? And
Mhm.
so a lot of people don't realize that Fern shut down Kroger's and Walmart, their distribution centers. Well, so they reached out to me, and I joke sometimes that I'm the water boy. So, and it's kind of funny. I kind of accept it. But what we were able to do is I started working with our private sector folks. And through one of my private sector folks, they provided a truck that when Kroger's got back up and running, they went and got bottled water. And specifically, it was for Mount Gilead, Ohio. And through the private sector, we moved water into that area because they had had a frozen water main break. And even though they got stuff up and running, there were nursing homes, there were places where there were elderly that didn't have clean water. And through the OP3 partnership, we were able to get water into them. And in fact, the follow on from that is Ohio Warren brings together all water, wastewater uh, people into one place, and myself and Ohio EMA representative are going to go talk to them about preparing ahead. That a lot of these small local, whether it's a city or a county, should consider buying water up front. But that's just one area that OP3 recently in the last 2 months actually worked.
You mentioned Kroger and Walmart helping get the supplies back into where they need. Are there opportunities for smaller businesses to get involved with that too? I think when I think of the Findlay Hancock County business community, I know it's a very caring business community, and we've seen it in action. Whether
Yeah,
it's the flooding down in North Carolina and Tennessee from a couple of years ago, a couple of our logistics companies loaded up trucks and sent things that way. Is there an opportunity to work through OP3 to make sure they're able to do that here in Ohio?
absolutely. I continue to build on this because when we do have a disaster, I reach out to give updates to the businesses, and then I also provide solutions. So something that I do within OP3 is I'm in contact with my private sector liaisons in other states so that we, through back channels, coordinate. So you have the Ohio EMA, working for all of Ohio with the 88 counties. But because of private sector liaisons or the OP3 program, I can reach across those borders and talk to my counterparts in other states that are affected. And then with the partners that within it, like the Walmart and Kroger's and Myers and stuff like that. Walmart specifically, Walmart is kind of leads the way a lot of times on being proactive in getting involved. Like during the tornadoes in Logan County, before I could
Mhm.
even get on scene or engage them, they had already set generators into that area and cleaning supplies. And then once I got on scene, I connected with where they had put the stuff and got it to the area resource centers so that people knew where they could go pick those things up. But for small businesses, there's always that opportunity. Sometimes it's in cash donations up that way.
Mhm.
When you guys had, well, not your side, but over towards Cleveland when they had the straight line winds and the
Yeah.
power outages last year, what we ended up doing is just we funneled cash donations in so that some of the food banks and stuffs needed more, they needed resupply. But all that's done through, it's just coordinating. And what we want to do is make sure that the small businesses are prepared themselves so that they can help themselves. But then there's other ways that if they can connect through OP3, we can do things like get stuff sent to outside the area for those that like North Carolina or Texas or
Mhm.
Region 4 and FEMA.
I I think what might be lost in some of those efforts is that there is this effort to coordinate them, and it's a really good thing that there is. You mentioned the Logan County tornadoes, and
Yes.
that's one that always near and dear to my heart is not the right way to say it about the tornadoes, but I'm from the Indian Lake area originally, and so a lot of people I know are affected by that. But it was really heartening one to see the local reaction, and it felt like a lot of the businesses maybe had the plan, but they wanted to pitch in right away. But then I know a lot of businesses from this area and all around the state wanted to get supplies there. But without that coordination from OP3 or from the Red Cross or from where that seems like that can almost get in the way faster than it can do anything. So that level of coordination and bringing it all together, all of our hearts are in the right place when things like this happen. But just throwing all sorts of stuff at the problem can really create secondary problems if not handled correctly.
Yeah, and it's so we're working on across the state we're working on what are ways to improve it. And it takes everybody. It's not just OP3 because it's when it happens like up there Hancock County, it is the Hancock County's EMA that
Mhm.
is the primary on all everything that's happening in that area when there is some form of emergency or disaster. So they're reaching back to the state for support. They're reaching back to the Ohio EMA on things they can't completely handle or need support with, but they also reach over to OP3. So it's a combination of us all in effort to help make us not only more resilient, but to respond to and help them recover because there's data out there in affected areas that there's been a major disaster. If they don't have things up by a certain amount of time, there's that secondary emergency
Mhm.
that businesses don't come back. They don't recover. So we want to make sure that we have businesses back up and running so that they can make money because that's what we're mainly here for is to support them, the local community, the family, the people, the families, and the businesses, so the area is vibrant again.
We've talked a lot about disaster preparedness and recovery. When you look at all of the things that OP3 does, are there services that maybe fly under the radar that you're particularly proud of or want people to know about to utilize more that maybe aren't in what we've talked about already?
Yeah, so if they become part of OP3, there's things that I connect them to. So there's a thing called SIMS, which is basically open source intelligence that they're
Hmm.
available to, that it connects them with training, connects them to things that we're seeing in Ohio or across the United States. But the OP3 program connects them with that. We connect them with training. We also connect them with, we have a critical infrastructure unit. So that critical infrastructure unit will come out and do a site survey on a business for free. They basically look at both physical security, cybersecurity, and they will help you uh, at no cost to you. And then it's non-regulatory. When they give you the feedback, you can take it and do with it as you will. But it just kind of gives you some ideas on how do I make my business more resilient to attacks and threats and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know about that. Um, so, the nice thing about OP3 being within Ohio Homeland Security is I can connect them to the intel or the
Mhm.
information that they might not be in other states because they're just simply within the emergency management agency. And, we offer the ability for our private sector folks to come do a tour of the Ohio EMA and also see what's called the stack, which the stack is a gathering hub for information and intelligence. But that also exists within the OP3 program, and a lot of people don't know about that.
You mentioned cybersecurity, and that is always something top of mind. In fact, we're doing some programming on that a little bit later this month with our Stronger Business series. And we've had guests on the podcast already this year that saying they have seen an uptick on scams, cyber attacks, everything. 2026 seems like it's going to be a banner year. Nobody who's just listening to the audio version saw my air quotes on that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's been a decided uptick in that. Is that something that you're able to keep people abreast of through communication through the agency and everything?
So what I do is, so we have what's called an OC3, and I know the
You guys have a
university.
lot of acronyms.
Yeah, I know. OC3 is basically, so OP3 is the public-private partnership. OC3 is the cyber, and I forget their whole term, but basically it brings together all the cyber folks. In fact, Lynn Child,
Yeah.
up in your area, she is actually in OC3 as well. But through OC3, it's the same type thing. Once a quarter, they have meetings, and they keep people abreast of the cyber side. So I don't have to do as much in that. I
Mhm.
simply am a partner with them. But I do connect people because thankfully, our state is very robust when it comes to cyber. You have the Ohio Cyber Reserves, which if there's a denial of service or some form of cyber attack, that it comes in, no cost. It's for small government that doesn't have the same funds. And it comes in and helps them mitigate and recover, hopefully, any damage that's done by a cyber attacks. And then there's also all forms of uh, stuff within OC3 that private sector can take part of, free training and stuff that helps companies be more resilient in cyber, which I through OP3 can connect them with those resources in OC3.
That's definitely somewhere where I guess when we talk about attacks, that's probably the most common attack vector, or whatever you want to call it, to small businesses, medium, large size businesses, upside all the way up the chain. But you are able to help people with that physical security too. What are some of the trends you're seeing and being able to help people when it comes to just their physical security at their business?
So physical security, of course, starts with, again, bringing out the critical infrastructure folks because they will see ways to access into the building. They will basically tell you what your threats could be. They do intelligence on, are these type of businesses being attacked more often? Recently, within at least the last 5 years, there were physical attacks on the grid, people going out to
Mhm.
these sites and either shooting or trying to damage to bring the grid down or to compromise our electric sector. So the physical security, again, the things that we can bring are those intelligence coming through the sims from our
Mhm.
stack, things that they should be aware of, um, that could be a threat to their organization. But yeah, a lot of it's in intelligence, and then
Okay.
also a lot of people don't know that Ohio Homeland Security also we certify the private investigators and the security guards out there. So all that comes through Ohio Homeland Security too. I don't think a lot of people know that, so that our people are at least they look at them to investigate them before you hire them as security guards and stuff.
Gary, it's a wealth of information that you're able to provide and get people connected with. If I'm a small business owner or a large business owner, what have you, and I want to get started with working through OP3 on whatever the project may be, what's the best way to get started with that?
That's a great question. So the best way is if you Google it, do Ohio space OP3, it'll take you right to my interface. And so in that, it takes 3 to 5 minutes to fill out the I want to be part of OP3. And then you'll receive an email back from me. And then I will start feeding you information. Uh, you know, whether it's like up in your area, we'll be doing a Northwest regional meeting. But
Mhm.
yeah, just simply Google Ohio space OP3 and it'll take you to my website. And in my website, you're able to register to become a member.
Very good. Gary, we appreciate your time. Thanks for stopping on the podcast with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. Appreciate it being the 200th.